In the event that you were to let a judge have to make a decision regarding an alimony and determining what an amount of alimony would be in a duration, you would find that there are certain trends that are used. We have another video that we've provided the outline on what those trends are. And within those trends, there are certain formulas, not statutory formulas, but there are informal formulas that judges will use in trying to establish an alimony payment. And the formulas are designed to establish two things: the ability of the payer and the need of the receiver. The first formula that is used is what's called the budget method. And simply put, the judge will ask the parties to present to him or her a budget of what they expect they are going to need in order to live going forward after the divorce. So each party presents a budget, and one of the things that should be noted is that neither party should be entitled to a budget that's greater than the other. So if you're one of the parties that asserts that you have a very high budget, you have to know that a judge is likely going to, if a judge is going to accept that amount, a judge is going to allow the other person to have the same budget. Each party gets to have the same housing allowance, the same food allowance, the same clothing allowance. There are some considerations that are made if one of the parties is going to be assessed certain debt repayments, and they have certain debts assigned to them. That can affect a budget where it may not affect another individual's, but a budget is determined. After a budget is determined, then an amount of income that the parties are able to earn is imputed into the equation. That amount of income is either determined by what they're currently making if they're working full-time, and they're not underemployed. If they aren't working full-time, then the judge will impute an amount of income that the individual that's not employed could make if they were working full-time. Unless that person is disabled, a judge is going to impute an income based on a full-time work ability of 32 hours to 40 hours per week. That one topic alone, when there is somebody that's unemployed or underemployed, can cost thousands of dollars in litigation and arguing, just trying to present a number to a judge that both parties can agree with, or that a judge can make a decision on with regards to coming up with an amount of income that can be imputed. So just be aware of that. After both budgets are determined and both income abilities are determined, the difference in each of those is what is used to determine the ability and the need. For the payer, they're going to have a budget of, say, $5,000, and they're going to have an income of $7,000, which means they have an ability to pay $2,000. The receiving party has a budget of $5,000, and they have a need, and they have an ability to earn $2,000. That means they have a need of $3,000. So the payer has an ability to pay $2,000. The receiver has a need of $3,000 in order to meet their budgetary needs. And that is a commonly used method for determining need and ability. And the second method is the income equalization method. And simply put, the parties take both of their incomes and they add them together. And they then cut that amount in half, and they give a credit to the party that makes the lesser income, an amount that will bring their income up to what the higher earner would be. So the math problem would look like this. If the payer makes $7,000 per month gross, and the receiver makes $2,000 a month gross, they would add those two amounts together and have $9,000. Equalizing the incomes, both parties would have $4,500 that they're entitled to have. The receiving party makes $2,000, so they have a need of $2,500 that will be paid in alimony. The paying spouse that makes the 7,000 in that scenario also has a budget of $5,000. So they don't have the ability to pay the $2,500. They do happen to have $2,000. So in that case, they would give the $2,000 over. Again, it's important to note there are two different formulas, and when done side by side using the exact numbers, they're typically going to yield a similar result. So let's do that. Let's start with an example using the budget method. Party A has an income of $10,000 and they have a budget of $5,000. That means they have an ability of $5,000. Party B has an income of $5,000 and they have an income of $2,500 and they have a budget of $5,000. So they have a need of $2,500 because they have a budget of $2,500. If you take the paying party or party A and you say they have $5,000 that they have available that they can pay with, and they distribute $2,500 of that to the payer, then in that case the receiver is getting $2,500 in alimony. Let's use the same numbers using the budget or the income equalization method. Party A makes $7,000. Party B makes $2,500, so they make together $9,500. They divide that number in half, which is $4,750. The party that's making party B that makes $2,500 takes and subtracts their earning ability from the $4,750. So $2,500 minus $4,750 is, pause, it's $2,500, $4,750. I want to make sure I do this math right too. $4,750 minus $2,500 is $2,250. Okay. So when you subtract the earning ability of party B from the $4,750, they have an amount of $2,250. That is very close to the amount of $2,500 that was awarded to them in the budget equalization method. So the numbers are going to oftentimes yield a similar result in the event that there are incomes that are much, much higher by one of the parties. Then that attempt to equalize lifestyle point comes in and more alimony can be awarded. So that's just comparing and contrasting in a very simplistic way the different formulas that the courts use for determining alimony. The mediator can tighten those numbers up. There are things that need to be factored in, like debt obligations that either party may have. If one of them has student loans or there's child support that's going to be paid or received, that can affect those numbers as well. But that gives you a rough idea that you can use if you are curious as to how the courts are going to go about determining an amount of alimony. When it comes to the duration, the courts, that's going to vary depending on state by state, and in some states the duration is for the same length as the marriage. In other states the courts have a different opinion and they only award alimony for a duration that is sufficient for that other person to either get an education or to obtain a job and be able to increase their earning ability to a certain level. And each one of those, each state has different criteria when it comes to that. So again, the more control you keep over your alimony agreement and the less that you let third parties influence you, and the less that you let any third party have any decision-making authority, as long as you're educated and you have a good mediator, the more likely you're going to have an agreement that is going to be fair.